What's up, FeRRUMers? Welcome to the FeRRUM Athletic Company podcast. I am your host, Andrea Warner. I am also the co-owner and co-founder of FeRRUM Athletic Company. If you would like more information on us, please visit our website at www.ferrumathleticco.com. And now, on to today's show. What's up, FeRRUMers? Welcome to episode number 6 of the FeRRUM Athletic Company podcast. My special guest today is our head coach, Aaron Rose.
Yo, yo.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Are you nervous?
A little bit. A little bit. I love talking to people, love probably talking more than I should, but I am a little nervous. We'll see what happens.
You're going to kill it.
I hope.
So let's start here. You're 24?
24. Yep. Just got married. Attempted to buy a house. All the big things are happening very, very quickly for me.
You're so grown up. Such an adult now.
It's wild.
So when the first time that Sherry and I ever talked to you, you were 22, I do believe, still in school at UCF.
Yep.
And tell us how you ended up here with us.
It's definitely been a wild ride. During that kind of course of our communication, I was just kind of searching for a new gym that had the same vision that I did. I was currently working at a gym, loved my owners, loved the members, but we were just kind of moving in a different direction than we both agreed upon, and that's okay. So I kind of sought out some gyms and some open-ended opportunities on Indeed and other things like that, and went on a couple interviews, but it was meh. Again, they didn't necessarily have the vision that I did. Active Life had been something that was all over my Instagram, my Facebook. I had followed them for a while prior to communicating with you guys. And one random day, Dr. Sean posted something on a story. He said, any coaches looking for a career out of this fitness industry, shoot me a message. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. Let's see what happens. Shot him a message, very simple. Hey, Dr. Sean, I'm Aaron. Kind of gave him a spiel as to who I was. And in the matter of, I'd say, 5 minutes, I received a message back very quickly. I was like, oh, dang, like that was very fast.
Yeah, Dr. Sean's on it.
He doesn't play around, which really shocked me. You know, it felt as though I was individualized. I meant something to him, you know, which I really loved. And he responded back with, hey, send me a video as to who you are, what you feel coaching entails, and the vision you have as a coach in your future career. I think I had maybe 30 takes on this video. That was probably a minute and a half long. Sienna, my wife now, completely going in and out as to the critiques of, you said 17 times, or the way you looked down was weird. I
can totally see her doing
so many different things, you know, but I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to exemplify the work ethic that I have and ultimately what I wanted in regard to my career. I sent that to Dr. Sean. He sent it out to a couple of gyms here and there. I ended up going on an interview over in Winter Garden, which was pretty close to where I lived at the time. And then he got me in touch with you guys. From there, we had a couple phone calls back and forth, and I tried to be as honest as I possibly could, because I feel as though the honesty and the vulnerability that I kind of put myself in was something that I think really kind of enhanced the relationship that you and I and Sherry have.
Oh, absolutely.
I kind of put my life in your hands in a way. And I straight up told you, I said, listen, if this isn't going to work, if I'm not going to be able to fend for myself, then we can kind of cut this conversation right now. Yeah. And you blatantly told me, we are going to make this a career. We are going to give you the opportunity to better yourself as a coach and be able to provide for yourself financially in order to do so.
Yeah.
And to me, that spoke volumes, because that's exactly what had been missing from all the previous gyms that I had been at prior to communicating with you guys. Everything progressed. Next thing you know, we're sitting across the table at a sushi restaurant talking about our lives. And 2 years later, I'm your head coach, running all the programming and training clients one-on-one.
Yeah, and I will never forget when Dr. Sean sent us that video, because at the time we were talking to him about, hey, we're thinking about hiring our first full-time employee, because prior to that we've had great employees, but a matter of figuring out what needed to happen to make that a full-time salaried position, like what goes into that.
Right.
You know, and on the last podcast, Sherry and I talked about the fact that like we were not business people. Like, we loved going to the gym, we loved working out, we loved helping people, but as far as like running a business and like having employees, it's been very much a screw it up and figure it out as you go kind of thing.
Trial and error.
And we admit that we made a lot of mistakes. So we get the video from Dr. Sean and we watch the video and I'm like, this dude's like 40 years old, easily. I was like, he's going to fit in perfectly here. So then when we called you and you're like, so I'm 22 and I'm a senior at UCF, I'm literally on the other side of the phone. I'm like, what?
Things don't add up.
Like, there's no way that this guy is only 22. I was like, this is fantastic. You're very mature for your age. You're very well spoken. You're very professional. And all of that is very much what we were looking for. Like, the hard part about where we were versus where we are versus where we're going is going from that mentality of being a playground and, hey, we're here to be buddies and hang out and go drinking and do all of the things like that, to being a professional business that helps people solve deeper problems. And that's been it's a culture change.
Absolutely.
And you've seen part of it with us. And that's a hard culture change to go through, because I know you've been at previous gyms that had the playground kind of feel to it. And we were very much like that. Like, hey, this is super fun. Let's do this. Let's compete against each other. Let's go hang out and drink. And that makes us closer together.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we weren't helping people to the magnitude that we really felt like we wanted to. And it wasn't, like, our heart wasn't in that.
Yeah, I definitely feel you spoke perfectly on that. It quickly makes you realize, what are we ultimately doing for the people that pay for our service? You know, like you said, at the end of the day, the relationships that we create are never forgetting. You know, those people are never going to be not in our lives, or we're never going to see them at the Publix again. You know, we live in the same community at the end of the day. And like you just said, touching upon, this is much deeper than just hanging out with your best friends on a Saturday long workout. This is, how can we get you out of pain? How can we progress your life way further than we even think this could outside of the gym?
Yeah.
It's much deeper than, did we have a good Saturday workout? Absolutely.
And, you know, it's funny, one of our previous clients from a while ago just messaged Sherry and I the other day. And, you know, she said she's going through, you know, a deep healing process herself, which is absolutely amazing. I'm super happy for her. But while going through that, she was like, I realized that the time period that I spent in your gym literally changed my life and changed my family's life. She's like, if you would have told me 10, 12 years ago that I would be getting up at 5:30 in the morning and going into my garage to work out, I would have told you that you're full of shit.
Right.
You know, she's like, and now my kids work out. She's like, that's something that I didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
So, and that's the power that we have as coaches, is to literally take someone, kind of put them under our wing and educate them on movement, health, longevity, what it's going to take for you to be the best husband, wife, brother, sister, parent, mom, dad for forever.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about coming in and winning or whatever. Like, we're talking about serious life changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've got to take it to that level and express that sort of stress that you're putting on your body and what that means for you and how you need to progress through this correctly. Yeah. That's the key.
Absolutely. So you come to us 2 years ago. No, 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't even know that you and Sienna were going to be a package deal.
Right.
Y'all get to meet Sienna next week. We're going to have a great nutrition conversation. But we get this amazing package deal of the Roses, the Mr. and Mrs. now.
Oh, yeah.
And when we brought you in, we had the idea of, we wanted to groom you to be our head coach. Mm-hmm. And speak for a second as to what that job entails. It's not just walking around like pointing fingers and yelling at people. Like, what does it mean to be a head coach at, we're going to call it our longevity gym?
Absolutely. So I kind of have two perspectives. One in more of the description as to on paper what that kind of entails, and kind of the role that I've put myself in, per se. In regard to on paper, my role is to go and create all of our class programming as effectively and methodically as I can, which I'm sure we'll touch on that here in a second. I also personal train 10 or so plus clients as well throughout the day. And I'm a mentor with our coaches, getting them up to speed with classes, standards, exposure to some exercises that most gyms aren't even touching or getting near. And I think that's what kind of sets us apart, is having such a variety and such a specific way of going about things, and having somebody that is there to mentor and explain and educate within, to me, is something that's so amazing. That's not something I had as I progressed through my 6+ years of coaching. And that's definitely something I wish that I had to simply ask questions to. Now, the role that I kind of put on myself, I feel this is where we become an empire. In this facility, we have a lot of leaders, and that's kind of the key to things. With this head coach position, this is a leadership role, and I don't take that lightly. At the end of the day, the work ethic, the modeling that I'm going to show, and the things that everyone's going to see is going to be amplified, because I'm the one. I put myself in that position. Everyone looks to me, looks to you, looks to Mel, everyone that's here, but I hold a specific role, and I don't carry that lightly. My standard is by all means high, but I'm also here to have a great time. You know, I'm always here to have a great time and joke around, but when it comes down to business, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. Don't get me wrong, there's avenues that we can take around those right and wrong, but there's definitely roles in which that I feel a leader holds, and being able to educate and help those alongside you, not behind you, is much more than I've ever received myself in coaching.
Absolutely, and I love that. You know, let's talk about that for just a second, because I think that with the fitness industry being relatively young, right? It's evolved from a time period of nobody worked out because everybody was super active. They were farmers. They all had very, very labor-intensive jobs, into an area where we don't. So fitness is now becoming more of a forefront.
Right.
And, you know, especially since the pandemic hit, and it's become even more aware that things like sedentary lifestyle, mental health, all of those things are now at the forefront of our health, right?
Oh, yeah.
So people walk into any kind of traditional gym, whether it be a big box gym like a Bailey's or a Planet Fitness, or even a micro gym like a CrossFit gym, a boot camp, or an Orange Theory. And because the fitness world hasn't been taken super seriously over the past however many years, sometimes people have that tendency to be like, hey, this isn't a real job. You know, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get a grown-up job? And we have been working hard to change that. So part of that coaching mentorship that we're speaking of, you know, people look at coaching like, oh, this isn't a hard job. Like, anybody can do this.
Yep.
You know, it's just, once you're in a gym long enough, I can teach squats, I can teach push-ups. You know, you're just telling people to go run. There's a difference between explaining the how and explaining the why.
Big time.
And the why is what we have really been working really hard at for a while now. Like, explain the why, coach the why. And that why applies to everything, not just movement, like lifestyle. Like, what is your why for why you work out? What is your why for wanting to, I don't know, go skydiving? Like,
right.
You have to have a why for everything. Why
Yeah.
are you choosing to compete? Why are you choosing, if you just haphazardly do things, then you tend to not stick to them, right? So for us, the hard part has been, how do you build respect, trust, reputation as a coach? And like, how do we carry that on to our coaches?
That's an interesting question. I'll say this is one that resonates very hard with me because I am so young. You know, like you said, I try to hold myself to a standard where I do get viewed maturely and I do get viewed professionally. But as soon as you hear that I'm 24, it's like, oh, well, he can't be doing this long.
Right. It's like when you walk into the doctor's office and your doctor looks like they could be your kid, and you're like, what the hell do you know?
Exactly.
How are you going to help me?
You know, and I'm to the point where I've been coaching for six and a half years. I have a degree in bachelor's degree in exercise science. You know, this wasn't a joke for me. You know, like you said, I think this industry is flooded with hobbyists, you know, and at the end of the day, I would say a majority of facilities, small or large, have somebody that's coming out of their full-time job to walk into their gym and then do that part-time. And that's 100%. Not our case. No. And I think that's kind of the difference. For me, the setback for me has kind of been my age. You know, I do think I speak pretty well. I love talking to people, and I could carry on a conversation with the wall for 30 minutes if I needed to. But that only gets you so far. Yeah. At the end of the day, everyone can pretty much read through your bullshit. Yeah. If you know what you're talking about, you know what you're talking about. If you don't, you don't. And it's very, very evident. And there have been times where I have gone on tangents as to how the arches in your feet affect your back squat for 30 plus minutes. Why? Did I need to go that deep? Probably not. But my explanation and my ability to dive into that explanation with that questionable and almost untrusting client that's new for me, that 30-minute explanation was what they needed. Yep. Because I understood the type of person that they were. They needed that explanation. They needed to know that I knew what I was talking about in order to buy into what I needed them to do.
Absolutely.
And I have other clients where I can say, all right, drop down, give me 20. And there's no question. I'll roll around if you want me to. Like, I'll do it. So I'd say knowing your shit, yeah. You know, and if you don't know, that's fine. And being able to admit that, I'd say takes more out of somebody to be able to admit than trying to talk for an hour, 2 hours on something that you actually have no idea about.
Yeah, I full-heartedly believe that if someone is a true professional, they say, I don't know, yep. as much as they actually give you an answer. I don't know, but I'll find out. I don't know, but I'll find someone that does know.
I think I've said, it depends, or let me check in on that 100 times to the same people over and over again.
Absolutely, and that adds to our ability to learn. Like if we look at this thing from a growth mindset, that we can always be learning. There's always someone that knows more than us. Yep. Always. As soon as you believe that you know more than everybody else, you're done.
Yep.
You're absolutely done. So as far as our coaches and what you provide mentorship wise to them, you know, watching them in classes, watching them coach, watching them speak, watching them move, and then providing them feedback. Now, when we talk about feedback, we're not just saying like, you suck.
Yep.
You did that wrong. You need to speak better. Pull your pants up.
Which is easy to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. There is number one, when you're a coach, there is a smell the part, look the part. Like, yep. we just check those off the box at the top. Yep. Like, wear the proper clothes, don't smell like a foot.
Yep.
You're good to go. As far as how a class is effectively coached. You know, we're talking about how personal training is effectively coached and programmed, and each one is different. Yep. And your ability to read the room, quote unquote, is a really big part of it. So if I have one person that I'm training, it's really easy to read the room. Yep. Like they come in, I see them 2-3 times a week, something's wrong with Joe. We need to spend a little bit more time talking about what's wrong. When you have a class, you're standing in front of 15 people and you're trying to quickly read the room. How do we do that? Like, how do we evaluate our coaches and get them to a professional standard that's not just, hey, this coach is going to tell you how to do that and hit a button and say 3, 2, 1, go. Explain for everybody how we go about that.
I would say the beauty is you can find your own style in doing it. And I think that's what sets each coach apart. You know, you're going to have different relationships with different people from coach to coach. But the ability to kind of make small talk and just communicate genuinely with people that are in your class, I'd say is a huge part of that. It doesn't have to be super, super deep. I will say most people that come to your gym are relatively open books. They feel, for the most part, comfortable in the space that they're in, or they probably wouldn't be there. I think simply asking gets you a lot farther than you think. I know a lot of people, whenever they come in, I'm very energetic. I try to kind of match the energy that they come in with. So if it's not up to my level, something's going down, you know, and I may wander over them while we're going through the warm-up and they're already over in the corner by themselves. Hey, everything okay today? How you doing? You ready for these back squats? You know, I mean, nothing necessarily, hey, how's your aunt doing? I heard she's not doing well in the hospital.
Right.
I don't need to know that information unless he or she gives me that.
Right.
But it is my job to check on that person and make sure, one, they're in the right headspace to safely go about what we have them doing today.
Yep.
And two, it allows me to see where they are right here, right now, and explain to them ahead of time, hey, we may need to adjust some things. Yeah. We may need to adjust some volumes, some movements to appropriate what we're doing with what's going on in your life right now. Mm-hmm. So I'd say the way of going about and getting communication out of your members, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. At the end of the day, we hold that leadership role in that class setting. And if they don't want to talk, you at least ask. You did your due diligence. Right. You're not their therapist, but if they want to be, if they want to have a session, you got to go through what you got to go through.
There's been times, right?
You know, and I think that furthers the relationship that you have with your member bases as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, checking in throughout the class. You know, we're going to go through some movements. How's everybody's shoulders feeling? Yep. And really paying attention to, like, hey, Susie's shoulders. She keeps rubbing that right shoulder. Susie, what's going on with your shoulder?
Right.
Like, what do I need to know that you're not telling me? Because, you know, sometimes people don't want to be a burden. Mm-hmm. Even though that's our job.
Right. They're paying for that service.
Like, you're walking into our space, and this is what we do for a living. Like, This is our career, and we're extremely passionate about it. And at the end of the day, we're here to help.
Right.
You know, I don't want you to just walk in here and not tell me what's going on, create your own workout because you have X, Y, and Z happening. Like, I want to know.
Right.
Our coaches want to know. And they all want to help. And I think that that's where our team exemplifies that professionalism in you have to tell me what's going on because I want to help.
Right.
And everyone on our team feels that exact same way, which is
100%.
Which is huge. For us to all be on that same level, you don't find that very often.
Right.
It's a really big deal. And, you know, this is also where we talk about commitment and communication from both parties. Because if I'm walking around a room and I'm saying, you know, we're talking about arches and feet for 30 minutes and explaining why this is important for a back squat, and you're looking at me like I have 4 heads and they're all purple, and like I'm an idiot, then we have a problem.
Right.
You know, like, the communication between coach and client is really, really important. Like, if I'm asking how that feels and you're not telling me how that feels, or I'm going out of my way as a coach to be like, I need you to do this. And your response is, yeah, but that doesn't feel right and I go faster doing this. Then we have a miscommunication between coach. And then what ultimately happens is we have a trust barrier.
Yep.
Right? As it boils down, like, I can stand here and you and I can both spew out anatomical, internal, external, femurs, humeruses, blah, blah, blah. What would you
like to know?
All day long. But to Susie, what she needs to know is, hey, spread your feet apart 3 inches, keep your chest up. Hey, when you go to do this step up, lean forward for me a little bit. I mean, she doesn't need to know about her hamstring, whatever. But at the same time, what Susie does need to know is, hey, if you do it like this, you will recruit this better, and you'll actually get out of this movement what it's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where we've really been working hard to elevate our staff for the why. Yep. And, like, when we talk about the why, that's really what we're talking about. Like, hey, we're going to do these step-ups. I remember we went through a step-up cycle.
Oh, yes.
And everybody threw a fit.
Yep.
Because, number one, we made them do it slow.
Yep.
And we had to overemphasize why we are doing this step-up. Like, I cannot emphasize enough your right versus left strength. This is actually a squatting pattern movement.
Yep.
If you have trouble doing it on your right leg still has trouble when you back squat on 2 feet, but your left leg's covering up for it.
The pattern is the same.
When we start talking about that why, that's really what we've done a deep dive into with our staff.
Oh, yeah. Right? That's been a big part of the things that we discuss in our meetings. I'd say activation and intention are a little bit more synonymous to what we were talking about in our why. And the key to it is knowing your stuff. Yes. If you don't know, that your quads attach on the crest of your pelvis, cross over your cap, and attach on your tibia, how do you know that's what's limiting some of your motion? You don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to have some anatomy knowledge to be able to do so. And again, this is where my role is such a big role.
Absolutely.
Because this is something that I didn't have. The luxury I had was the college courses I went through.
Right.
You know, and if I can basically give somewhat of a synopsis of the 4 years I went to college for in a little bit of a meaning.
Do you have bullet points for this?
Right. I got a couple PowerPoints I could dig out.
Notes, please?
You know, and if I can give them a little bit of that knowledge to help our coaches give our members a little bit more insight as to what the intention is, how this needs to be activated, and why it needs to be activated this specific way, who's going to question that? Yeah. You have all the information, the trust is there. I've laid it out in front of you. You either agree and are going to do it, or we aren't.
Yeah. Or you just want to blow through it to get it done and then complain about it later.
And then what's that person's intention?
Exactly. And what we go back to our why.
Yep.
So this has been a huge help for Sherry and I, because as business owners, what we really try to do is clone ourselves. Right? So we've had amazing conversations with you about our vision, and you are 100% on board with our vision. And from the moment that we met you and that day that we took you to V Pizza, yay, V Pizza, by the way, and we sat down with you and we were very honest. We were very clear. We're like, listen, this is the direction that we're heading. This is our vision. Just tell us if you're in or you're out. And that was the great part about you were very honest with us. We were very honest and transparent with you. This is where we're heading. And it's worked out beautifully because you've seen what we see.
Yeah.
And that's really been a big obstacle for all of us, is that we see something that maybe we're just really far ahead of people, and we see things that people aren't seeing just yet. And we say this a lot, everyone will see.
Right.
Right? It's the time is coming that people will understand that connective tissue is important. I mean, not everybody knows what the hell connective tissue is. We'll just tell you it's important.
Come on by, I'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. If you like your shoulder feeling really good and being able to lift things overhead, then you value your connective tissue.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So a big part of our professionalism and leveling up and taking this gym and building an empire has been our programming. And we've been in a lot of meetings about it. And what we deeply believe is that we want this programming to be uniquely us.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We go in the way our gym works is we go in basically a cyclical fashion. Everybody that walks in the door starts with a full joint assessment and personal training. Once we finish with personal training and you're confident and competent, you ascend into our Ascend class, which is half individualized programming, half group. And then we offer the option of moving one more time into our fully group class that we call Built.
Yep.
Right? So let's talk about this programming and what we wanted it to look like, why we believe it's important for longevity.
So this has been a long progression into what exactly we wanted this to look like. You know, this has not been a weekend where we sat down for an hour and boom, this has been the perfect program. And it's still not perfect,
no.
and it never will be.
I think people believe that. Like, once you've worked out long enough, you believe that you can throw together these amazing workouts, which is what we call the Any Asshole program.
Yep, I'll get you tired, don't worry.
Any asshole can throw together a hard workout and make you sweat and lay on the floor.
Absolutely.
But can that same program progress you in such a way that when you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you feel like a badass and you're thriving? That's what we're looking for.
I think ultimately where we're getting to with this is, can your nervous system handle it? Can your joints handle it? And ultimately, I think it has to be fun. You have to enjoy doing this. This isn't something ultimately that everyone wants to do. We're all a little bit crazy here.
Just a little bit.
For a good reason.
Just a little bit.
Because we see the priority in this type of movement. This is much different. We've got landmines, we've got 1 1/4 reps, we've got drop sets, cluster sets, isometrics, plyometrics. We are diving into everything. Everything we've learned in the years of trial and error, educating from certifications and other mentors that we'd have to seek out ourselves. This is ultimately, and I'm pointing at our whiteboard here, ultimately what we've come up with in regard to our vision. This is something that we feel needs to be progressive and attainable for any walk of life, especially once they go through our personal training programs with each of our coaches. And once we get into our group setting, this is a generalized program. And I think that's the key. Generalized programming doesn't fix individualized issues. Correct. And that's where this all kind of started. Where we kind of begin is the rotational aspects of movement patterns. We cannot consistently vary things all over the place. We cannot come in on Monday, build to a heavy 3-rep bench press, to then on Tuesday do 150 burpee box jumps, to then on Wednesday do ring push-ups. It's not attainable. It's too much volume. And if somebody brand new, even after going through some personal training, comes into our group class and does 3 days of high volume horizontal pushing work, we're going to have an issue.
Majorly.
The elbow is going to break down. The shoulder is going to break down. The wrist may break down. It all goes down the links of the chain. Yeah. We as coaches have a duty, one, to ensure they're going about that movement safely. That's one way to reduce some of that. But two, where I think a lot of gyms are lacking, is programming. Yeah. This is ultimately part of the service that we provide as the entirety of the gym. And if we don't spend a good amount of time methodically going about volumes, rotating movement patterns, and ensuring that we aren't hitting the same exact things all over the place all month, then we're doing good.
And you know, there's a secret in the number. You know, you don't just, if you throw out 50 or 100, there better be a reason for 50 and 100. If you're throwing out 5 or 6, there's a reason for 5 or 6. Now, we all know that there are people that walk into a class and they're like, you're giving me all these stupid rubber band exercises? What is this, physical therapy? Let me tell you something. I've done some of my worst freaking workouts with a red rubber band.
Oh, yes.
If you understand muscle activation, if you have done this thing right, if you have listened to your coach, you should be we're going to call it fully activated.
Oh, you're activated, all right.
I'm not going to say smashed, because you shouldn't be smashed.
Right.
Right. You shouldn't leave the gym feeling crushed. You should leave the gym feeling good. And that's another conversation we'll have just here in a minute. But when we look at, you program a month at a time. You and I are sitting in the office right now looking at this whiteboard. And we're looking at March. And we literally have, what are these, 8-foot whiteboards?
Yep.
We have 16 feet of whiteboards. And we have the entire month written up here. And I don't know, for you guys that have seen the movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, it's kind of what it looks like. There's numbers and movement and eccentric control and rounds and reps. And there's just, to us, we know what this is. Somebody were to walk in here, it looks like a cluster and like, you just randomly threw things on the board, but it's not random.
Not even close.
There is a rhyme and a reason to everything. And the hard part about when we start programming progressive overload is that, sure, every Monday we're doing a bent over row. The numbers change, the rep changes, the way it feels changes, but there's a reason why progressive overload works.
Yep.
There's a reason. There's a reason why we also program it at a tempo and not just blow through it to blow through it. That's where we start talking about connective tissue.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if we want this thing to be a total picture of health and longevity, that's what it's got to look like.
I'd say the difference between our program and, I hate to speak on it, a traditional CrossFit programming is variance. The average and general population doesn't need the variance. They need to progressively repeat particular movement patterns that are rotated specifically so they can get better at them.
Yeah.
If I have you do a back squat the first Monday of the month and you don't do another back squat just like that of the same intention with, we'll say, an 8 out of 10 RPE with a tempo or a cluster set, we'll say, to get over your threshold, and then next month we just do some air squats, that's not the same.
Not the same.
You're not progressing through the same type of intensity, same type of movement pattern. Yeah, you did an air squat and a back squat. In regard to the pattern, it's the same, but the intention, the activation, and the reasoning behind it is so much different.
And the way it hits your central nervous system, the way, there's a rhyme and a reason. Right?
So we'll take Monday since we already spoke on it, and we have a bent over row. It is a bent over row every single Monday, and we progress through it very specifically. We have members that enjoy the pump that they get as they go through their strength portions, as do I. And so, in order to create that intensity that they are looking for, we're doing a drop set. The first week, it progresses and starts with 4.4. They'll do 4 reps, take some weight off, 4 more reps. From there, we progress into the second week where they do 4, take some weight off, 3, take some weight off, 2, take some weight off, and ultimately 1. And what that's doing is that's adding a little bit more reps. We progress from 8 reps to 10 reps, but the intensity is much, much higher, and the intention is to beat or match the weight that you did last week. Very specific. We're not just throwing weight around and seeing what we can get to every single week. We have intentions behind this. The following week, you do 6 reps, take some weight off, 4 reps, take some weight off, 2 reps. Now we're at 12 reps. We're adding volume to either match the same weight, or we're trying to beat that same weight to add a little bit more strength. It depends on what your emphasis is. And in a generalized program and with generalized people in a group setting, ultimately they have to make that intention or that specific intention as to what they need most. Now in personal training, that's much different. You're coming to us for that guidance. I will explain to you and educate you as to what you need most. But in a generalized program, you need progressive overload. You need repetition. You need to recruit motor units in these movement patterns in order to move more fluidly, more effectively, and more optimally. Absolutely. And that's the key.
And when we talk about these drop sets, we're not talking about do 4 reps, walk around for 3 minutes, and then do the other 4. We're talking about do 4 reps, strip the weight off, and put your hands back on the bar. We're talking about a 10, 20-second rest. Right? And what's great about this is, let's say that I talked to Joe on that first Monday of the month about bent over row, and number 1, what it needs to look like, why we're doing it, what muscles we're using. We start talking about shoulder blade movement. Week number 1, he's a little sketchy on it. Mm-hmm. We come back on week number 2, he remembers the conversation that we had a week ago, and now he gets to use it again. Mm-hmm. By the time we get, hopefully, to week 3 or 4, he's like, oh, remember how 2 weeks ago we talked about you wanted me to use this muscle? I finally feel it there.
Yep.
Now I'm using the right thing. I'm not overloading the wrong muscle group. I'm not creating an unnecessary injury with either tendonitis or whatever because I'm over-recruiting something that's not supposed to. It's an excellent program for muscle fiber activation in a proper mechanical way, motor recruitment patterns.
Oh yeah. I hate to go on a tangent. I hear a lot that the intention and the lack of understanding from members from the explanation of the coach is ultimately the coach's fault. I'll ultimately agree with that, but I'll say it's due to the programming that people are used to, that excessive variance. Say we have this variation of bent over barbell row on the 5th of this month, and then the 20th of the same month, we just do another random variance of a bent over row. How are we getting better at that? By us being able to go through the same variation of a bent over row with the same intention throughout the entirety of the month, very similar to what you just touched on, My cues may be very specific in the first week because I have to tell you the how and the why, plus we got to talk about other things, yada, yada, yada. Week 2, you already have a little bit of an understanding. Not only are you progressing with the activation and the recruitment of motor units, but my cues can progress with you. And I think this is the biggest point in coaching. Each week that we come in here, if we do something different, how are we going to get better? And how am I going to see that progression as their quote unquote Sherpa, their coach? Mm-hmm. If we do the same things each week in months at a time, say we do this bent over row, by week 4, maybe your elbows aren't flaring as much. And that's not even a cue I have to tell you anymore. But Susie on the other side of the room may. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of it is, one, you can see that progression and be able to express that progression that you're seeing from that member, which is ultimately building your relationship. And 2, it's giving you more tools in your box and a little bit more of an expression from the coach to say, hey, you are progressing. Your elbows aren't flaring out like they were. Now, let's focus on this. This is where our intention is.
100%.
So we're not just progressing in the movement. We're not just progressing in the weight. We're progressing in how we specifically move.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, the quality of the movement is what we're searching for. And it's more understanding we can have around that. I think the more holistic of an experience our members and coaches have in that transitional period of progressing month to month for movements.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you understand the why behind the movement, the muscle activation, the rep schemes, the whole 9 yards, you're not looking to just come to the gym and die.
Yes.
Right? Just give me something really super hard, beat the tar out of me, let me lay on the ground in a pile of my own goo, and then I'll just feel better about what I did today.
Yep.
Like, this is the exact reason why myself at age 42, Sherry at age 51, are seeing results. Mm-hmm. Because it's not varied. It's progressively getting us to a point to where, I used to write down all of my stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I could tell you from top to bottom what all my stuff was, same as my phone number, my address.
Right.
I knew it like the back of my hand. You want to know my Fran time, my back squat, my deadlift, my clean and jerk, whatever.
Yep.
I have no idea how much I can back squat these days. I don't know. I just cyclist front squatted today, and all I know is it was heavier than what I did 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And it felt good. That was my day today.
Yep.
Had I walked in, let's say that maybe I didn't get enough sleep last night. Maybe 2 weeks ago, I felt like I was on top of the world. Hormones play a factor, especially for women of our age. You know, we have days where we literally just feel, meh. So some days I feel like I'm on steroids, which I'm not. Oh, by the way, let me just throw that out there. I'm not on steroids. But some days you feel like you are, you feel super strong. Other days you don't. And that's also the beauty of this program, is that you're not chasing max numbers anymore. So, you know, we talked about the goal is to progress in weight, but we're talking like 5 pounds.
Right.
Right? Like
minute changes.
Yeah. What I did 2 weeks ago for my cyclist front squat, this week for my cyclist front squat, I literally did 5 pounds heavier.
Yep.
And that was it.
But progression is progression.
Progression is progression. It moved in a way that's going to make me stronger. My joints feel really good. I'm going to sleep well tonight. I'm not going to toss and turn because my back hurts or I smashed myself and I can't hardly walk. Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate goal, right? So when we start talking about progressive overload versus variance, someone who walks in the gym who hasn't worked out in 10 years, who's like, I got to get my shit together. Those people, it doesn't really matter what you throw at them because they're going to see results. Oh, yeah. And they're going to see them really fast. Their weightlifting is going to improve really quickly because their tissue is like absorbing all of it. Like,
it's brand new. They have to adapt to everything.
Bring me the things. Yep. In their body, they're shedding weight. They're progressing up in their movement. They're getting faster. And they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Take people like us that have been working out for 10, 15, 20 years. Well, you're not even that old yet.
No, not me.
Wait a second. You're not even that old yet. So those of us that have been working out for a long time, that variance isn't going to work.
Yeah.
If I squat here press there, deadlift there. It's my numbers. I'm gonna be super frustrated because at some point, unless I follow some sort of specific strength program, my numbers are gonna stall out. Like I remember at one point, I was like, I haven't PR'd my back squat in 5 years. I mean, I couldn't. I literally couldn't. But now that I don't care, all I want to do is feel good. My numbers are, I don't know what my back squat 1 rep max is, but I know I can back squat and I feel really good.
Right.
And that's what's important to me.
I would say the drug quickly switches from how can I sweat, how can I be sore, how can I push myself to the closest brink of my threshold that I can, to how can I depress my shoulder blade so it's flat up against my ribs as I go for a ring support hold. How can I activate my lats a little bit better, more optimally, so whenever I do bench, my elbows don't flare out and then I get some pain in the knuckles of them? How much deeper can we dive into the functionality and the specifics of motion to alleviate problems that are much larger than the one that you feel doing a 30-minute workout to lay on the floor is ultimately what some people think is more beneficial?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to take a second to brag on our girl Rachel, who just got her first strict pull-up.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday?
Yesterday, when do we have pull-ups?
Or was it?
It may have been, let's see, last Thursday.
No, she did something this week. I just saw her, maybe it was Wednesday. I don't remember. But she made a post in our group that she got her first strict pull-up. Now, we had people who had been members in our gym for a long time who wanted to do pull-ups. They would learn how to kip them. And we'd be like, hey, listen, you should probably do those strict before you kip them. It's a lot healthier on your shoulders. And they're like, yeah, but I really want to do pull-ups. You know, I want to be able to do pull-ups and workouts. And if I kip them, I can do them. Not great on your shoulders, because not only do you not have the concentric strength to get up there, you also don't have the more important part of the pull-up, to me, is the eccentric strength on the way down, because that's, if you can't control that on the way down, we're just shredding tissue.
We're just dropping into it.
Yep. And that's where torn labrums happen.
Oh, yeah.
So we would preach strict pull-ups, strict pull-ups, strict pull-ups. Well, people were not getting them.
No.
Our girl Rachel set out on a mission about 1.5 years or so ago that she's going to get a strict pull-up. So she really applied our strength, like took it super seriously.
To a T.
To a T. And got her first, not only her first one, she did 3
Wow.
that day. She walked into the gym that night, gave her a huge hug, congratulated her. Sherry goes, I want to see it. Unwarmed up, of course.
Right.
She's like, show me. Unwarmed up, Rachel walks in, grabs a bar, and does a strict pull-up.
Yep.
Like, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was the freaking coolest thing I've ever
Like she'd been doing them for years.
been a coach of.
Right.
And, I mean, I love seeing people do that.
Yeah.
Like, things, and she's, don't get me wrong, Rachel is a very young 44, but she's not 18.
Right.
So it's not like she just is a kid who walked in off the street. No, she's a mother of 2 amazing kids, wife to Andy, who's a member here as well, and he's fantastic. Their whole family loves it here. And to see someone progress in that manner and suddenly bust out a strict pull-up, especially for a woman, that's such a huge accomplishment.
Yep. I would like to say, in regard to Rachel, 1, fantastic job. 2, my question to her would be, what do you feel got you that pull-up? Was it doing pull-ups every single day after class? Was it all the horizontal pulling to strengthen your lats and the ability to pull the shoulder blade down to initiate that pull-up? Or was it just sheer luck?
Yeah. And you know what's funny is if Rachel were sitting here in this room right now, I'm sure her answer would be, I don't know, it just happened. I can just see her being like, I just did what they told me to do.
Right.
And here it is. what I loved about her post is she's like, I've been pushing myself on the strength portions.
Yeah.
Which is really, so if we're speaking longevity, I'm not sure how many of you have witnessed people age. But I know I speak about my grandparents a lot because for me, it was a very emotional thing to watch. I know a lot of you have parents that are going through that right now. Watching people age and seeing the things that they are physically unable to do that we take for granted every day. Stairs, curbs, cars, chairs.
Big one.
Big one. Like if you've ever seen someone have to rock like 3 times in order to stand up, they're trying to rock into their quads.
Yep.
To stand up because their glutes and hamstrings literally no longer function.
Yep. They don't have access.
That's that whole, like, if you don't use it, you lose it, is 100% true.
1000%.
So when we've sat down and had our meetings about longevity, that's been really our big focus. Like, even, I mean, speak to the fact that you're 24 years old and we're talking about longevity.
Right. I'd like to hope I have a ways to go. Speaking on family, I resonate with that wholeheartedly. My grandfather sits in a recliner all day to the point where his recliner has a button that will lift his seat to get him to a standing position.
Yeah.
His overall movement is to the bathroom and back a couple times a day. He'll be brought a plate. He'll be brought his breakfast, coffee, everything. We love him to death and we care for him, but how much of our care is also killing him?
Yeah.
I'm the oddball of my family, and I'm more than happy with that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, very much so. I know how that feels.
Longevity is something you don't know when is going to end. You don't know when your time is coming, and I think that's our ultimate driver, is you don't know when your life could be taken. And you can't take that for granted. And I think what we do here, I don't want to say lessens that from happening, because ultimately you never know what's going to happen in life. But we're taking a step toward the direction in lessening it.
Yeah.
In reducing what ailments may happen down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're reducing arthritis. We're reducing lung conditions, we're reducing diabetes, we're doing much different things than getting you to 315 on your back squat.
True story. Yeah.
Longevity has nothing to do with how much weight is on your barbell. Yeah. Because if I ask you to do 500-pound back squats, how long are you going to do those? Mm-hmm. Ask Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah. Seriously.
How was his hip? How was his knee?
Yeah, there's a risk.
There's so many opportunities for everyone to take a step ahead. It's just whether you want to prioritize it or not.
Mm-hmm. True story. And, I think we all get so stuck on that will never happen to me. And the things that we actually prioritize as far as like, hey, I'm losing my engine.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm losing my strength. Well, it depends on your why.
Yeah.
Listen, what are you wanting to use? How much engine do you need?
Right.
How much strength do you need? Now, when I'm talking about need.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about want. Like, if you ask me what I want and what I need are very different.
Very different.
I mean, I want $1 bajillion.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
Right? What I need is enough to feed myself and survive.
Right.
Right? So if we're talking about being healthy and longevity, what I need is a healthy heart. I need strength to get up and down stairs. I need strength to sit and stand. I need the ability to be able to go out into my daily life and do what I want to do, which is I want to be able to mow my hellacious, awful yard that's not flat with my push mower.
Of course.
And not break my leg because there's a ditch, there's a pond. It's not good. It's like the hardest workout I do all week is mow my flipping yard. It's worse. It sucks. Yeah. I want to be able to take care of my house and my car on my own. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to take care of this gym with you guys on my own 2 feet. right? I want to be able to pick up weight and carry it from one side to the other when everybody's like, hey, we're rearranging.
Right.
Cool, let's rearrange.
Start.
Right? 3, 2, 1, go. You know, those are the things I want to be able to do without really having to think about it.
Yep. That
now,
independency.
If I liked running, which I don't, maybe I would want to go out and do like one of those fun little 5K runs. But
right.
Listen, if you see me running down the street, you better start running too, because we're in a lot of trouble. But if I want to be able to go out and play golf, I have the flexibility and mobility to still play golf that I haven't played in about 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, so wants versus needs is very different. And I think people confuse those two things big time. And they walk into the gym and they're like, I want to be able to deadlift 500 pounds. I want to be able to back squat 350. Why? How about you need to be able to pick something up off the ground safely? You need to be able to sit and stand. You need to be able to step up on a box or on a step. Those are things you need. Now, granted, when you come into the gym, you're also going to want to do some of those wants.
Of course.
Where do we draw a line?
I think the line is drawn on safety versus efficacy.
Ah, good point. Risk versus reward?
Yep. At what point do you look at somebody and it is very clear and you say, I think we should take some weight off the bar?
Yeah. Or I think you should not be upside down.
Right. You know relatively immediately, and not necessarily as the person doing the exercise, you know as a coach if something is out of place, or at least you should.
Yes.
You can visually see when it's too much weight, when there's a loss of core engagement, when one muscle group is not being activated like needed in a lunge pattern or something. You as a coach can see the deviation from what ultimately the biomechanics should look like.
Yeah.
But it's our job to make that statement, keyword being statement, not asking, hey, you're in over your head.
True story.
And sometimes it's a little punch to the gut, maybe even the heart for some people, but sometimes that's exactly what you need to hear. And although we have fantastic relationships with somebody, I hate to say this, I'm happy to ruin a relationship to ensure you didn't hurt yourself.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to make sure that you make it home to your wife and kids, or your husband and kids, or whatever you're going home to, your dogs, your cats, your parents.
Yep.
It's our job to make sure you get there safely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Coach, it's been an honor speaking with you today. I love it. For anyone that's on social media, where can they find you?
I am on Instagram. I'll have to look up what my Instagram is.
Oh, come on.
Facebook, all that. Let's see. It's a ton of underscores because I got an ordinary name and numbers and exclamation points.
I think it's A_Rose.
I want to say it's A.Rose __. There we go. That's what my Instagram is. Feel free to give me a follow. I'll accept it because you know I'm private.
It's so private. So until next time.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great day.
It's been a pleasure.
Let's do it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the FeRRUM Athletic Company podcast. If you like the show, please leave us a review, share it with your family and friends, share it on your social media platforms. Our mission is to build better humans through the education of health and movement. If this resonates with you, please shoot us an email at forged@ferrumathleticco.com. Follow us on social media, Facebook or Instagram at FeRRUM Athletic Co. And we will see you all soon. Thank you for helping us to build better humans. What's up, FeRRUMers? Welcome to episode number 7, lucky number 7 of the FeRRUM Athletic Company podcast. And my special guest for today is the beautiful Sienna Rose.
Yes. Now I am flowers.
As of 2 weeks now?
I think so.
You guys have been married?
Yeah.
Officially 2 weeks? Hey, you made it 2 weeks. Congratulations.
I know. It's weird.
It is kind of weird, actually.
Yeah. I'm like, nothing's changed, but a lot has changed. I don't know.
All the things have changed.
Yeah.
So what I'd really like to start with is how we got so lucky with you and Aaron being a package deal that we didn't even know was a package deal. I talked with Aaron about this last week. And when you guys, first of all, we didn't even know you existed.
Yeah.
Aaron waited until like, I don't know, like the 10th hour to be like, hey, can I bring my girlfriend to dinner? And we're like, you have a girlfriend?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had been talking with Aaron, and we're in the process of bringing him here to hire him. And we were like, who are you moving here with? And he mentioned you, and you come to dinner with us and tell us where we went from there.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think from the very first second that he heard of FeRRUM, he was like, you know, I was part of the process the whole time for sure. But I remember he came to Jacksonville for like a weekend and, you know, stayed in a hotel like for a night or so and saw the gym, like, shadowed a little bit and was like, I love it, like, you know, raving. And so he came home, and then I think it was like a weekend or two following, we both came, and it was just for the day because he had already like committed to the job.
Right.
And so we were searching for apartments, like
That's
driving
right.
all over Jacksonville. Didn't know the area at all. And we finished our day with sushi, which we both were happy about. We love sushi.
We ate all the sushi that night.
Yeah.
The people serving us just kept bringing it. Like, do you guys ever like stop eating?
Yeah, and I was like, oh no, I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, it's all you can eat, and I do nutrition, so. But
Awkward.
yeah, I remember Sherry brought her daughter. I was like, okay, like definitely. Felt we both, well, I mean, Aaron had already met you guys, but felt very comfortable from the start. And, you know, I remember when he moved to Jacksonville like a week or two before I did, because I was finishing out my jobs in Orlando. And then when I did end up, you know, getting to Jacksonville, I was like, so can I like go to your gym? Like, you know, and do I need to sign up for a membership? Yeah, like, you know, I'm here too, but I'm just a person. I'm not yet like, you know, part of the gym. So I was, you know, it was a weird like dynamic because Aaron was the new coach. So everyone's like, who's that guy, you know? But then I'm the new girl and people didn't really know our relationship. So, you know, people would come up to me and introduce themselves just thinking I was like a new member. And then when I would say I was from Orlando, they're like, what brought you here? And I'm like, Coach Aaron. And they're like, oh my gosh, like putting two and two together.
Like, we had no idea.
Yeah, so it was funny to see people like kind of connect the dots over time. You know, I'm trying to think how I did get started with nutrition. I mean, I think just in conversations, like told you guys that my full-time job was remote nutrition coaching, and there were a lot of people interested in nutrition at our gym, but no real like program or process for that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I talked to you guys, and I talked to the people who I work for remotely just about like how I could make it work, because you know, I think for me, I also like see it as a big, you know, area of like focus that people are really confused about and, you know, are approaching in ways that actually aren't the best for them. And
yeah, absolutely.
You know, even if just like a conversation can help, I was like, I want to do it. So, you know, we figured out a way to kind of make it work, and we created from there a workbook because just with, again, like my remote job, it needed to be in person and, you know, paper and pen kind of thing. So I was like, okay, how can we make this like legit, but not like so tedious that it's, you know, not worth it, I guess.
Right.
So we created a workbook and kind of put together all of like the nutrition education and food log, biofeedback log, and kind of got started from there.
Yeah, and if we go back to, you know, when you guys moved here and you were coming into the gym and you were working out, and I remember Sherry and I looking at Aaron and we're like, does she coach? Like, has she coached, like you have coached? And he's like, yeah, she has some. It's like, then we were comfortable approaching you saying, hey, would you like to help us with our group classes? Like every now and then. Because at that point in time, we had known that your full-time job was online nutrition coaching, which you work for a great company. What's the name of your company?
SD Evolution.
Yes. And you do remote stuff with them, right? And so we didn't want to, number one, step on their toes. Number two, consume more of your time, right? We wanted it to be, we need help, you're good, we want this to work, we don't want to overwhelm you. And it worked, it's worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
As far as you help us with our group classes, everybody adores you, which is, I mean, impossible. Like if you were to meet Sienna, she's easily adorable.
Thank you.
When we started, we knew that nutrition for us was a big gap. But let's start here. Actually, before we dive deep into nutrition, I want to go back to your coaching. One of the things that I feel that you have to offer that is very unique, that I don't think many people understand that you offer, is your pre and postnatal training. You have your certification in this.
Yeah.
And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that certification because I've never had kids personally, but we work with a ton of women who have.
Yeah.
You know, our coaches on staff, Sherry, Mel, Rachel's pregnant. For females having children, this is not like you just have a baby and that was super easy. You know, you're talking about a really big life-changing thing, but it's not just life-changing in the fact that you're having a baby and it changes everything. It's also extremely life-changing for your body.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about the fact that I feel that women kind of don't take that very seriously. Like they just think it's a natural part of being a woman. You have a baby and then you just go back to your daily life.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you do with that as a coach.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think in general, it's a like misinformed, again, topic. So one kind of odd recommendation that doctors have given in recent, or like I would say up until now, has been like not to lift more than 30 pounds and, you know, to not do core work. And it's with no like kind of research backed evidence behind that. It's just kind of like, that's not good for you. Don't do that. And then it's either, I would say for women who don't have like any experience with lifting, putting fear into their heads, like, now I'm so fragile and like I can't do anything. And, you know, at one point or at some point, that child is going to exceed 30 pounds. You know, you're going to have to get out of bed and use your core, you know. So again, just going back to kind of those loose recommendations, they just aren't realistic, like for even someone who doesn't train or work out.
Yeah.
But then when you get to, you know, women who do lift and who do train consistently, and kind of going back to when Aaron and I got to FeRRUM, it was still CrossFit. And so I think that was an additional kind of, you know, fear factor for women, is that, okay, this is a CrossFit gym, you know, again, back then, and I'm pregnant and I'm postpartum, like, this is really scary. You know, I don't know what to do. And so when it comes to like being pregnant or postpartum, the biggest thing, is, you know, education in general. You know, I think a lot of people think just our core is our abdomen, our front side. But it's our pelvic floor, it's our diaphragm, it's our erectors. It's, you know, a lot more than just, you know, that six pack. So, you know, again, just educating on one, like what your core is, because obviously as you're pregnant and, you know, once you're postpartum, your belly and your core, your abdomen, they all have to expand. And so a big thing people get nervous about is like diastasis recti and having that kind of coning or ab separation. And so again, core is a big thing. Breath work is a huge part of it, as that, facilitates how our diaphragm and pelvic floor move.
And I think people misunderstand or don't place enough importance on the breath work part of it. Mm-hmm. The breath work is a major part of what we have going on with really our entire body.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with our central nervous system. Mm-hmm. And for our women that come to you, I mean, there's things that they need to do before having the baby. Mm-hmm. But then afterwards, a doctor, they get to, 6 weeks postpartum, 6 weeks, and the doctor's like, cool, go for it. Mm-hmm. And most women don't realize what's the extent of what's happened internally.
Yeah.
And they go back to doing their regular activities. Let's say they go back to joining the gym, running, whatever they were doing, and they just go head first.
Yeah.
Like, yep, it's been 9 weeks or 9 months. I'm so ready for this. I'm ready to get back. I want my life back, my body back, my time back, whatever it is. Mm. We've seen so many women that come back after having a baby, and it's not just immediately after having a baby. It could be years down the road where hip problems are a problem.
Yeah.
Back problems are a problem. And it's because they didn't do what they needed to coming back from having a baby. Like, that needs to be, I feel, a lot of importance placed on that step-by-step recovery from having a baby to going back into your active lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I think recovery is a important word, because really, like, not so much pregnancy, but depending on who you are, it could be pregnancy. Labor and giving birth in general is traumatic. It's, depending on, again, your experience, you could have, torn, you could have had a C-section where they're literally cutting into your abdomen, and we treat it like it's nothing. We think that you can just bounce back, again, in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, but then we treat, like, a broken arm differently, or we treat, like a torn meniscus differently, when I would argue that, labor is way more traumatic than some of those, more common, I mean, again, pregnancy is very common, but more, I guess, like, thought of injuries,
Right. Sherry had 2 C-sections, and her youngest is now 14. She's still numb where her C-section scar is. And she's even been told that potentially some of the back and hip issues that she has could be coming from her C-section scarring.
Yeah.
And she's been told on a number of occasions that she needs to work on that. And here it is 14 years later.
Yeah. I mean, you're, like, once you have a child, you're postpartum forever. It's not just the 6 months or 12 months after, like, you've had a baby and your body can't go back, not that that's, like, a bad thing. You can still crush training and crush life being, a mom, but your body will have always gone through that experience.
Yeah, and it's different. It's not that it's not broken. Yeah. And I don't want people to think that having a baby, now you're broken for forever, but your body is just different.
Yeah.
After that entire process, because like you said, it's very traumatic. And I think a lot of importance should be brought to that entire process.
Yeah.
Pre going into it, what needs to happen. That it also has whatever you do pre coming into birth dictates a lot about how that birth process goes. It can be made easier.
Yeah.
Just from the education and the health coming into that whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think just being educated, even if you don't take action on that, can put you in, like, a better mindset and kind of prepare you for those experiences a little bit better. I think when there's a lot of unknowns, that's when, we start to feel anxious or scared. But when we, fill in those unknowns with answers, we start to, like, kind of take a deep breath, and we are like, okay, I may still be nervous about what this process looks like, but at least I know what to expect or what is normal versus not normal. And, again, having those answers can kind of like free up some of that like mental like
right.
anguish. But,
and what you do with the clients that I've seen you work with, it looks like personal training. So I don't want everybody to think that we're talking like Lamaze class.
Yeah.
Right. It looks like personal training that you would do for a person who is looking to be fit and active. There's just some special things that need to go along with those training sessions. So it's not that you're babying them in any way.
Yeah, no.
It's still a physical training session with weightlifting movements, resistance movements, maybe a little bit of cardio with it. But during that entire time, I've watched you work with people, and you're discussing breathing the entire time, and heart rate, and things that could potentially be dangerous while they're going through the process. For example, box jumps, because falling clearly is a major no-no. We don't want to put you in the risk of falling. So things like box jumps, rope climbs.
Yeah.
I'm sure you talk about jump rope or any of those kind of things while you're going through these trainings.
Yeah, I mean, there will definitely be, and it, depends on when you're kind of starting training, or maybe you're just continuing training, but it's changing because you're now pregnant or postpartum. There will definitely be some movements that are like what we call contraindications that, could essentially do more harm than good, but understanding that that's for just a season. It's not like eventually, you may be able to get back to box jumps or double unders or, running, burpees, the things that are a little bit more intense or just put a little bit more impact on the body.
Right.
Those are just things that, can be scaled back to, a level that is, healthy and attainable for those seasons, again, whether that's pregnancy or postpartum. But I mean, that again is how we would approach injuries, or maybe someone who is newer to the gym. It's not, again, that you're being babied or we're like, only letting you do certain things because, you're, I don't know, a special case. Like, you're still who you were, or you're still, at the level you were at, just with things that we need to now like take into account.
Yeah, absolutely, into consideration as opposed to ignoring the process.
Yeah.
Right, because it plays a big role in that recovery afterwards. So if we move on to your next specialty, that is the deep dive into what I'm excited to talk about, is nutrition. And when we found out that you did online nutrition, Sherry and I have been talking about a nutrition program in our gym for forever. That, to us, that's been the one thing that's really been missing. We did nutrition challenges, we've done educational seminars, and you can do those things for people, but they treat it like a competition. Like, hey, I only have to do this for 30 days and I'm done.
Yeah.
Do they ever really learn anything from it? Maybe. I mean, I could stand in front of a room and talk for 2 hours on nutrition. I've done it, where you've watched me.
Yeah.
And people ask all sorts of questions, but it's a matter of what they do from there application-wise. Like, we can stand there and talk all day long, and people can ask questions, we'll answer them. But as soon as they leave, what's their motivation to continue to do it, right? So when we sat down with you about what our nutrition needed to look like, we came up with the idea that we wanted this to be a nutrition program that looks like nothing that the ordinary person sees. Now, we do have an amazing friend of ours, Bridget, on social media. I know it's being Bridget, who does functional medicine, food medicine, food is medicine.
Yeah.
And she takes a really deep dive into blood work and supplements, and she does an outstanding job. For the person who is looking to lose 10, 20 pounds, feel better, maybe doesn't know what the heck food is dealing with things like diabetes, some food allergies, that kind of stuff. This was a program that we wanted everybody to feel like they were going to get their bang for their buck, that they were going to be held accountable, and that we were going to make this like a lifestyle thing, right? So we came up with FeRRUM Fed, and where we are fueling better humans. And we wanted this entire thing to be somewhat like personal training.
Yeah.
Like when people walk into our gym, they start with personal training and they get a full body assessment, and the whole process is very much about what they need to get back into an active lifestyle.
Yeah.
They get movement, they get lifestyle education, they get continuous check-ins on movement progress, how they're feeling, goals, so on and so forth. We wanted our nutrition program to look the same. Like, we want you to check in, go through a consultation, basically have an assessment, and we want this entire process to be built around what you need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to work. Right? So let's talk about what this nutrition program looks like when someone first walks in the door.
Yeah. So we have an assessment that we sit down and we talk through. It's not like a movement assessment where we're, looking at your body and stuff. We're more so having a conversation and asking you questions. And I think with the assessment portion of it, what surprises people most is that we're not just asking them about their nutrition. It's not just like, what'd you eat yesterday? Okay, well, we're moving forward now. Like, we're asking you, what your job looks like, what your work balance, work-life balance is, and what home looks like, and, who does grocery shopping, and who, is handling cooking, because, nutrition is a lot more than just food. It's your entire lifestyle. You're eating hopefully at least 3 times a day,
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And so I would argue that with nutrition, it's something that takes up a lot more of our time than like training. We ideally, again, train maybe an hour, 3 to 6 times a week, depending on your level, So, nutrition is a part of our life regardless of, whether you're trying to focus on it or not. Like, you have to eat, you can't not. So we talk a lot more about, again, your lifestyle. We ask about, your stress, your sleep, really just digging into things that overall affect, where the scale is at and where your, health in general is at. Do you come into the gym energized, or do you come dragging? Do you, does your stress, is it managed well? Are you, managing that by talking it out with people, or are we managing that by downing a 6-pack of beer?
Right.
Like, these all play into account with our nutrition. So we talk a lot about that in the assessment. But kind of beyond that, the process looks different for everyone. I think the most frustrating thing that people come up with when regarding nutrition is that, there's no straightforward answer always. Like, if we don't know the ins and outs of your life, the answer will probably be, it depends. Because for someone, this, method A may work, and for someone, method B may work, So again, it really just depends on your lifestyle. I have some people who have never tracked, macros or calories and don't even know what that is. So we're just starting off by, keeping a food log, writing down what those meals are, what our drinks are, and just kind of building awareness. And then there are some people who are like, I've been tracking macros forever, and, I have a food scale and all that kind of stuff. And so for those people, we can start at a different place. We can start with tracking.
And, as far as making this look, like you said, very personal, we always say the hardest part of being human is being human. And what makes us all human is the fact that we're all different.
Yeah.
So what works for me doesn't work for Sherry. What works for Sherry doesn't work for you. And the only way that you as a coach knows what's going to work is by sitting down and meeting with these people on a regular basis and having these really deep down conversations. And a lot of times, even nutrition meetings can borderline kind of look like therapy because we all have a relationship with food. Yeah. Whether it's positive or negative, and some people are oblivious to the fact that we have this relationship with food, but we all have one. And it's figuring out our why. Yeah. Right? Like, why do we feel we need this? Why do we feel we need this? Yeah. Why? Like, it's not going to do you any good to look at someone. I think of Tiffany off the top of my head, who I absolutely adore. But for her, yeah, she likes to, she'll track stuff. She really doesn't like to. Yeah. So for you to be like, listen, I need you to track absolutely everything that you put in your mouth. I need you to weigh and measure every single bit of it. And I need you to tell me all about it. She's going to look at you and be like, probably not. Yeah. Right? Yeah. She's going to say, you're crazy, because that doesn't work for her. That doesn't resonate with her. Yeah. Like, she doesn't understand that. Yeah. So for her, your approach with her is going to be much different than the person who is very OCD about weighing and measuring their food, putting it into a calculator. They want to see all of the things. Like, Sherry's actually really good at that as far as her tracking is concerned. And she wants to make, it becomes like a game for her. She wants to make sure that she hits these numbers. Yeah. So each personality is different. Everybody's understanding is different. Yeah. So navigating that for you is a big part of what's made this program, I feel, successful. Yeah. And I think, just to kind of clarify what we mean by, different things will work for different people is, is this method sustainable? Because kind of going back to like, challenges or seminars, you could cut out sugar for 30 days, but will that last? Can you do that for the rest of your life? And some people can and some people can't. Like, I would probably say I cannot, if you know Erin, we love our cookies. So, all the cookies, the cookie monsters. I think the biggest thing is like figuring out a method that is sustainable for you. Because, ultimately whatever your goal is, whether that is to like lose weight or, sleep better, again, whatever it is, you want that goal, or like once you achieve that goal, you want those results to last. Yeah. You don't want to lose 10 pounds and then, gain it back, or you don't want to sleep better for a week and then sleep crappy for the rest of your life. Like, whatever you're trying to achieve, you want that for, a good period of your life, or hopefully forever. So, again, I think when we talk about what works, we mean, what is sustainable, like, and again, I think one thing that people get a little bit uncomfortable with, and it depends on, again, your why and how bad you want, said goal, is the timeline of which it takes to reach said goal. Because one thing with our FeRRUM Fed program that we tell people in their consultation is that we have a 3-month commitment. And we do that mostly just to kind of set expectations of, if your goal is to lose 100 pounds, we're not probably going to do that in a month or two. So just letting you know, it will take probably at least 3 months to reach whatever goal you have. Just because, again, life happens. You may be you may be consistent to something we put in place for a week, but then our great aunt dies and we have to go out of town, or there are little stressors here and there that pop up that, even if you are being really intentional and putting a lot of effort towards the things that we're implementing, you can't always predict what's going to happen, and things change. And so again, I think setting that expectation of what the timeline will look like is huge, because again, change of any kind doesn't happen overnight. Oh my gosh, no.
I think that those two things of like, setting expectations of like how long it will take to reach your goal. And again, setting out the plan in a way that is sustainable are like the two biggest things, I think.
And the mental side of nutrition is the hardest part. Mm-hmm. The physical eating part of it, or going to get food. And I mean, when you have someone saying, listen, I need you to eat at this time and I need you to eat this food. Mm-hmm. Great. The mental side of it that people go through we live in such a world of instant gratification. Definitely. Like when I turn my phone on, I expect it to work. Yeah. When I send a text message, I expect it to go through. Mm-hmm. Like if stuff doesn't happen in like the blink of an eye, mm-hmm. then it must not be working, and this is crap, and we must be failing. Mm-hmm. And as you said, nutrition is a very long process. It's a journey. Yeah. And for most of our people, you didn't get to a point in your life in 2 months. Mm-hmm. It's going to take longer than 2 months to get out of a point in your life, mm-hmm. right? Things happen as a process as we go through it. Yeah. So as people start nutrition, the reason why people usually stop after 2 weeks is that they expect to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, or they expect this big life-altering change that everybody's going to notice in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And when that doesn't happen, they're like, well, this diet, quote unquote, mm-hmm. is stupid and I'm done. And it's because they've either, number one, viewed it as a diet, which is negative. They've restricted everything, which is a negative. Mm-hmm. They have this mindset, like as soon as you tell somebody, hey, you can't have that, mm-hmm. the brain doesn't associate can't. Yeah. It doesn't recognize can't. It recognizes can. Mm-hmm. So when you say, hey, you can't have alcohol, mm-hmm. all that person's going to think about is the fact that they want alcohol. Mm-hmm. Like it makes them want it even more. Yeah. So the conversations that you have, I'm sure, are very focused around being very choosy about the words that you use. Oh, yeah. And it's trying to help people change the way they think about this entire process. Mm-hmm. And it's not about taking away. Yeah. It's about adding. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, we're going to start talking about adding. The big one I know is protein. Mm-hmm. We're going to start adding some protein. Yeah. We're going to add fiber. We're going to add fruits and vegetables. We're going to add water. Mm-hmm. The talking about things like alcohol, sodas, sugars, they're, I'm sure, gradual mm-hmm. conversations mm-hmm. as opposed to like, listen, I need you to stop all of that right now. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, again, like a couple people come to mind with these conversations of like, adding things into our life versus taking away. And, one of my clients specifically told me, like, I love my Diet Coke, right? And this is one thing I don't think I'm willing to give up, Mm-hmm. And so I was like, that's fine. We'll work around it. And for now, we're going to, try to increase your water intake, for example. And, I would say a month goes by, 6 weeks go by, and she's like, I couldn't tell you, like, the last time I've had 2 Diet Cokes in a day. Like, usually that's my normal is 2. Yeah. And now I have 1, and that's not satisfying my thirst, So I think, when it comes to things like sugar, alcohol, our vices per se, like when we put our focus on things that we're adding into our life, those kind of naturally become less of, they're not as enticing, I guess. Yeah. Just because, our brain isn't thinking about that. It's thinking about what we're adding. It's thinking about water, or it's thinking about protein. So with those things, again, it kind of naturally becomes an area that we care less and less about. But, for things like alcohol, this is a big reason why we talk more about what home life looks like. Or, I ask clients a lot of times, like, do you have any big events coming up, or like plans traveling, because with those sorts of situations, we
we don't live in a vacuum. We don't just live at home, right? Like, we see people, we travel, we have people come to our homes. You know, there's like football games, there's, you know, pool party, you know, whatever you have going on. These are going to be different environments that, you know, we can practice a certain set of behaviors at home, but once we are taken out of that environment, you know, our behavior now changes because different people are involved, or, you know, with habits, we have these cues that basically let us know, okay, this is the next thing we're doing. Like, if maybe, for example, a behavior that is pretty common for people is to, like, you know, grab their phone immediately when they wake up. The cue is that your phone is right next to your bed, plugged in, right?
Right.
So maybe if that's a habit you're trying to get rid of, we plug our phone in the kitchen. And now the cue that was to get on our phone immediately is gone, and we're kind of reducing the, like, likelihood that we get on our phone first thing in the morning. And so
like that.
Same thing with, like, again, nutritional, like, habits. So if you are, we'll say, not drinking water very often, and we want to try to drink more water, you know, maybe we have a water bottle by our bedside now. And again, if you are now traveling, that's going to be different because maybe your bed is now the couch at someone's house, right?
Right.
So, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, how we can transfer the habits we've practiced, you know, in environments that we're comfortable in and that are consistent, or what's the word? Like, we can anticipate what's going to happen. We talk a lot about how we can transfer those sort of habits and behaviors to environments that are, you know, unpredictable or just different, you know, because, again, we want these things to be sustainable. We don't want a week away to totally derail us.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, because I think that so many people take nutrition as black or white. Like, you're either eating super healthy and following this road to a T, or you are totally not on that train at all, and you're having fried chicken, cheeseburgers, and fries, like you're just totally off the rails. And there's a time and a place, and there's a blend. Like, we still need to, I hear this all the time, well, you know, you want me to do this, but I want to live my life.
Yeah.
Like, well, I live my life too, but I know exactly how certain things make me feel, and I don't like feeling certain ways. So for me, it's, over time, it's made that choice easier.
Yeah.
If you were to know me in my past life, when I played golf and was younger, I ate and drank whatever I wanted. I would come home at night and I would drink beer. That was my sit on the back porch and chill.
Yeah.
It was not uncommon for me to eat an entire large Pizza Hut thin crust pizza by myself. I mean, I love food, and I can flat out eat some food.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always the best choices. But I did it because I thought I could get away with it.
Yeah.
Until I started taking better care of myself and realized that the things that I was putting in my body made me feel a certain way. I didn't know how bad I felt until I felt good.
Yeah.
And then I was like, holy crap, you felt bad. But I didn't know it until I cleaned all of that stuff out. I actually started sleeping at night. Now I know what it feels like to not get sleep. I know what it feels like to have, and people are going to laugh, but 2 beers and then go to bed, because that's pretty much all I can handle now.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like when I go home to Indiana to visit my family, because I know that I'm on a little bit of a vacation. I know that my family's going to go and we're going to have pizza. When I'm here by myself, I don't go out for pizza by myself anymore.
Yeah.
Like I used to.
Yeah.
So, but I will go out and I will have pizza. I will have a beer at dinner. I will, if it's a birthday that I'm there for, or Christmas, I will have the cake. I will have the cookies.
Yeah.
But by the time I get done with the trip, I'm craving a spinach salad. Like, I start to crave fruits and vegetables and getting back to my normal
you miss it.
routine.
Yeah.
I miss it. You start to appreciate the way real food tastes. And when you don't have things like chicken the way that you fix it, and people are going to laugh because if you haven't been through this entire process, and it's a long process. It took me a long time to get to this point.
Yeah.
It's not like I just woke up one morning and was like, forget it, I'm never eating pizza again. I used to eat cinnamon toaster strudels for breakfast in the morning. Cinnamon rolls were my jam.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff is what I grew up with, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm done with all of that. I'm going to switch to eggs and oatmeal for breakfast, chicken and broccoli for lunch, and, I don't know, chicken, asparagus, and a salad for dinner.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get to that point. I had to figure out how I like to cook it,
Yeah.
how I like to eat it, but it's now become so routine for me that outside of that routine, I feel like I'm being drugged down the road behind a pickup truck and beat with a baseball bat. Like I physically don't feel good.
Yeah.
But I can look back at the time that I'm gone, and I enjoyed my time with my family. I know that what I did is not part of my routine, and I know as soon as I get on the plane to come back, we're right back in our routine.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of practice, and this is part of the nutrition program education that people receive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people when they think about nutrition, because we talk about fitness in the nutrition world being such a young thing, and everybody kind of navigating their way through it, they think of things like a Weight Watchers program, which works for those people that choose to do it. Is it a life-changing thing for the duration of their life? Maybe for some people it is. Maybe for some people, though, they don't learn what food really is. Like, they might know that dairy counts for 2 points,
Yeah.
but what do they get out of dairy? Like, what do they get out of that cup of milk?
Yeah.
They might know that chicken is worth 3 points, but what are they getting out of the chicken? Why do we need that?
Yeah.
And I think that's where our education is far different, and why it's a process and not a challenge or just an app. Like, there's a huge educational value to it, and that's why we've designed it the way that we have, with you have to come in and meet with the coach once a week.
Yeah.
If you feel that you need check-ins daily or every other day, we'll set that up.
Yeah.
Tell me what you need in order to be successful for this program to work for you, and what is the definition of success for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of, this process is unlearning and relearning, because, we all come from different backgrounds, whether that is just the way we were brought up, or, the diets we have tried in the past, or the combination of the two. I tell people all the time, like, again, talking about who you live with and what home life looks like, you can live with somebody and, you're still two different people. Like, for example, Aaron, my now husband, which is weird to say, but he grew up, where his mom cooked meals, I would say, from scratch, had dinner every day consistently at, we'll say, like 5 o'clock. Snacks were like not a thing. You were not snacking. You either ate your meal or you're hungry, and I grew up way differently, where, I will say my parents were much younger when they had me, but we had like TV trays where we would sit down at the couch and eat, like sitting on the couch for Aaron and his family was, again, not a thing.
That's
like, not
a thing.
allowed.
Yep.
We would have some microwave dinners if things were, tight, or if like time was limited. So, even just having, people in your home with different backgrounds too, not even friends and family, can be, a challenge, because, again, we don't live in a vacuum. Even if you as an individual are focusing on your nutrition, there are all of these other people, all these other environments that you have to take into account, because, I'm not going to sit with you, unfortunately and fortunately,
Right.
at every meal, helping you put together, your meals, helping you cook. So there's a lot of things that, as far as, again, previous diets or our upbringings that we may have to unlearn or, kind of challenge, in a way. And there's maybe even a lot of conversations that you have to have outside of, your coach and you that are tough, like you may have to tell your spouse, like, hey, I know our, Friday plan is always pizza and beer, but, I'm trying to improve my nutrition. So maybe we, instead of going out for pizza, go try a new restaurant where the food quality is a little bit better,
Sushi's a great date night option.
So, again, there's a lot of things that, that change, not just, that aren't just your nutrition.
Yeah.
And kind of, I wanted to go back to you said Weight Watchers. A lot of those, we'll say Weight Watchers, keto,
intermittent fasting.
Yeah, intermittent fasting. Like all of those things are really well marketed to make people believe that they're like special and that, there's something about this that like changes lives, which again, it can, but I think the biggest thing is, again, is it sustainable for you? And a lot of times those diets end up just reducing your overall like intake because now you're just cutting out either a whole food group or you're just cutting out, like something is being cut out, basically.
Ooh, and this brings up my favorite subject. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
it's okay.
Go ahead.
And, again, a lot of people come to us with histories like that and, come with a lot of fear, a lot of like unknowns, like they don't feel still educated after going through those diets or processes. And, I try to tell people like, if this is something, if they come to me and say, I really want to do that, it's like, we can try and make it work, but, at a point we have to ask ourselves again, can I keep this up forever? And, are the results I'm going to achieve because of this going to last? Like, and, not to harp on those like diets too much, but, it's really just a matter of like, can you keep it up and can it be something you stick to for the rest of your life? And if you truly don't see that lasting, I would say more than a year or two, then it's probably not the best way to approach your nutrition.
Right. And if you understand if you have a coach who truly understands how the human body works, there's very few demographics that will do really well on keto. And it's going to be people who have diseases. Like a cancer patient will do really well with keto. A long distance endurance runner can potentially get away with a more keto diet because of how long it takes to turn fat into glucose. Everybody else, I hate to burst everybody's bubble, but the human body runs off of glucose.
Yeah.
It's
unnecessary.
It's a fact. I'm not making it up. I'm not pulling it out of my butt. Every human being on the planet runs off of glucose. We run off of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
We have to have them. And when people cut them out, it messes with our hydration levels. It messes with a lot of things. And then you have to find yourself supplementing with other things because of that. And it can mess with your sleep. It can mess with your recovery. If you're an athlete, it messes with your performance. Like it's a really big deal, and searching out a professional coach who can navigate that with you is super important.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said this brings up my favorite subject, because I'm very passionate about this, is documentaries.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
By far my favorite subject to talk about, because we have people come in here all the time, like we will preach nutrition until we're blue in the face, and it never fails. Somebody walks in the door and they're like, did you see the blah, blah, blah documentary?
Yeah.
We shouldn't eat meat. We shouldn't eat vegetables. We shouldn't eat carbs. And the answer that comes back every single time that I tell every person is, who funded the documentary? Anybody can make a documentary.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make a documentary on why you shouldn't wear shoes
Yeah.
and why shoes are killing you. You totally could. You just have to find the right people who also believe maybe it's a sock company that wants to sell more of their socks.
Yeah.
I will fund you and have you do an entire documentary on why you should wear these socks because these shoes are bad and they will kill you.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has to take that into consideration. And when you start working with a more professional coach in the nutrition world, they will navigate all those conversations with you.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I mean, that's unfortunately the world that we live in with media and social media, and literally anybody can produce anything that says anything.
Yep. Yeah. Anyone can put anything out there, and there's, you know, kind of going back to mindset and like psychology, there's literally a thing called confirmation bias where what you believe you will seek out. So if you believe that, you know, say you watch some documentary and now you believe that we should not have vegetables ever again, you're going to seek out things, or, you know, your brain is going to kind of highlight things that support that. So, you know, it can be really tough because, again, people like come to us with these histories of believing X, Y, and Z, and we're basically popping all of those bubbles, you know, like telling you that's not true, or that's not even like supported by research, like, you know, and again, it can be a tough like pill to swallow when you're hearing that what you thought was true is not, or what you thought was good for you is not, and you know, it kind of goes into, again, more mindset stuff with like not, you know, beating yourself up for those things. Like, you know, now you're better informed and we can kind of move forward from there. But, you know, these are things that you have to be very like skeptical about, you know.
Right.
And if you don't have, again, like the kind of basis of nutritional education, you're going to not know what's right or what's wrong, or what's correct and what's not, you know.
And your social media page, you do an amazing job with your social media.
Thank you.
So for those of us wanting to find you on social media, I asked Aaron his the other day, and he was like,
yeah.
Do you know your Instagram and social media?
I do. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it's funny because I did change it, obviously, after we got married, and Rose is a very common last name, apparently. Compared to Reback. So it's Sienna Rose with 3 E's, but Sienna is Ciana.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice. So I hope everybody heads to your page, gives you a follow. Yourself, and we have 2 other coaches in our gym, Rachel and Eric, who also help with our FeRRUM Fed nutrition program. If you're interested, head over to our website at FeRRUMAthletico.com and shoot us an email and sign up for a consultation.
Yeah.
Sienna, it was awesome speaking with you today.
Yeah, it was so fun.
We'll see you soon.